And welcome to GameSag. Thought I'd try something a bit different this time and talk about the best first stages in games. Levels that make a great first impression and preferably give you a chance to learn the game mechanics in a way that's way better than a tutorial. A great example of a good first level would of course be Super Mario Brothers, because you get a chance to figure stuff out and hey, you got a hidden bonus area with coins and stuff. Who doesn't like coins? Anyway, let's get to our first game. Here's Mega Man X from Capcom on the Super Nintendo, or Mega Man 10 as some weird people called it back then before they played the game. Normally in a Mega Man title, you can choose whatever stage you'd like to begin your game. But starting with Mega Man X here, we now have a proper first stage. This is a great one as it lets you get used to X's new abilities. For example, at one point a defeated enemy drops you down into a pit and you can't escape with what you know from the previous games on the NES. But as you jump around aimlessly, you'll figure out that you can now stick to walls to ascend in order to escape. Holding the attack button, you can fire a more powerful shot to help defeat some of the enemies. At the end of the stage, you get your ass handed to you, and then Zero comes in with his sexy hair and bails you out. His speech helps hype you up a bit for the rest of the game. After all this, you're given a password so that you never have to play this stage again, and then you can select a level. But as a first stage, I love how it teaches you some skills. Way better than a tutorial, which assumes that you're an idiot. This is Magician Lord on the Neo Geo from ADK. This was one of the very first games on the platform and the one that everyone dreamed of getting if they could actually get a Neo Geo. And for good reason, because this first stage is killer. It starts out with 3 layers of what looks like a painting. These were amazingly colorful graphics for their time and just blew everyone away along with the pumping music. Then you make your way to the rocky side of a cliff and defeat a bunch of bad guys. Soon you climb down a ladder and get your first power-up, transforming you into a fire-breathing dragon. Holy hell, this game is awesome! You come to a door, but before you go in, you want to grab another quick peek at those painting-like clouds. Okay, let's go in. Wow, there's a lot going on inside here. You grab another power-up and now you're a sweet-ass ninja. And he gets powered up some more just a few steps later. Hell yeah, ninjas are awesome! You think you should go down this ladder, but no. Going off of the edge is actually faster and safer just as long as you know not to land in the pit. Now you're at the mid-boss, who's actually a bit tougher than the stage boss, as he's pretty hard to hit. Beat him and this cool guy lays it all down for you.
What imprudence, you human beings! Face your trial by God.
And that's right, now we're fighting God. Or at least one of his many trials. Just hit him in the face when it appears. The second stage is pretty good as well, though not as good, and honestly the game goes downhill from there. I think that the first stage is the best thing about this game. Ghouls and Ghosts from Capcom is an amazing game. As a sequel, this one had to show you that it wasn't your granddaddy's Ghosts and Goblins game, and it sure proves that as everything is highly upgraded over the original. You can now shoot up and down, you've got a bunch of new weapons, and each weapon has their own magic. The tree at the end of the graveyard is full of vultures who want to eat you. Then, if you can somehow make it past the giant guillotine and across the bridge, it collapses, and then a storm suddenly starts. At the time, this kind of animation was a sight to behold in video games, even in an arcade game like this one. The storm is short-lived though, and if you can somehow survive it, you get to a giant hill where there is more than one way to go. You can go up on the left side, battling spontaneously spawning plants and branches, some of them throwing the skulls of their previous victims at you. Or you can keep going to the right instead, getting to a bridge that leads to another treasure chest which may have something good or maybe an evil wizard inside. Both ways lead to the top, but you need to watch out for the vomiting pigs. They really do love to vomit. Not only that, but their vomit is impervious to your attacks. You need to wait for them to empty out. At the top, you go all the way down to the other side and then you fight the first boss, which is a huge screen-filling monster who holds his own head in his arm. Watch out because he spits fire at you. Whether you're playing the arcade, the excellent port to the Genesis, or the other excellent port to the Super Graphics, this stage is a fantastic start to an outstanding game. Here's Panzer Dragoon, a launch game from Sega on the Saturn. The opening stages in this game are incredible, but we're talking about stage 1 in this episode, and it certainly puts on a show. You ride on the back of a big dragon and you target enemies with your super cool reticle. We hadn't played games like this before now, at least not in 3D like this game is. This one spent much of its development time before the Saturn hardware was even finalized, so it's amazing what they were able to do here. It might seem a bit sparse, but it's incredibly fun. You fly around an old, decaying ancient city that has long since been personally flooded by Al Gore and his global warming. This is accompanied by one of 3 music tracks in the game performed by a real orchestra, the others being the title screen and the end credits. This is great stuff and time to the action on the screen. This level would be amazing no matter what, but it's really elevated by the music. This next series has a bunch of games with amazing first levels. I'm sticking with 32-bit consoles, and before that for this episode, and pretty much all of them, well, a lot of them can be included here. Here's Contra from Konami on the NES. This amazing run and gun also has a great first stage, especially on the NES here compared to the arcade version. The first thing that you gotta watch out for are the bridges, which automatically blow up because they'd rather not exist than be touched by your stank-ass feet. No worries though, because you'll be fine. You'll just be stuck in the water at the bottom of the screen for a bit before you can get out. But if you time it correctly, you can easily jump across the bridges before they blow up. Doing this will allow you to get the coveted spread weapon earlier in the stage. This weapon is always fun to have, but you can still get it a little further into the stage as well. The classic music here really adds to the fun. At the end of the short stage, you come up against a fearsome first boss, a giant wall of guns. How is a regular guy like you supposed to get past this? It even has a little guy on top trying to shoot at you. Be sure to kill him because he does not deserve to live. Turns out that you're no regular guy, as this wall goes down pretty easily. The Japanese version of this game is even cooler as it has an intro. The stage graphics are also slightly different. Once you get to the trees, you see the leaves are blowing around in the wind. This is because in Japan the game used a special chip made by Konami, but Nintendo wouldn't let them use that chip for the console outside of Japan. And Nintendo didn't have any equivalent chips for them to use at the time, so they had to remake some of the graphics. Either way, this is a short but fun first stage. Super C from Konami came out a few years later. Contra became a bad word for a few years back then, so they had to censor the title. But this first stage doesn't mess around. You start out by rappelling down from a helicopter during sunset. It's a lot more challenging than the first stage of the original game, as there are guys jumping all around all over the place. Enemy fire is coming at you from a lot more directions as well. You need to get a feel for how the game flows in order to avoid it all. It's very similar but slightly different than the first game. This stage has more verticality as it scrolls diagonally up as you advance. And once again, the music is great. You can get a cool flame weapon which bursts when hitting its target to damage surrounding foes. You get to the boss and it's no wimpy wall, but instead a big helicopter loaded with guns. It's actually not very dangerous. The guys that are jumping at you during this attack are the far bigger threat. Just keep shooting at the giant zit on the helicopter and it'll go down without much fuss. When Contra arrived on the Super NES as Contra 3, it also came with a fantastic opening stage. This one has it all. Right away, you find that you're going to need to have some nimble reflexes to get through this game. Even the dogs want you dead. You get to experiment with most of the weapons in both of your weapon slots. Soon, you'll find yourself fighting the first boss from the original Contra game. It goes down, but the stage continues. Now, you're riding in a tank-like vehicle, shooting powerful shots and running over enemies like bugs. And then another first boss. What? This is crazy! Okay, these aren't bosses, not even mini-bosses in this game. But soon, you do get to an actual mini-boss, a scary tank. No problem, it goes down easy, just like my first girlfriend. Get past that and you arrive at your first opportunity to strike a pose while an airplane made out of Genuine Mode 7 flies in, bombs everything, and now the stage is on fire. Oh man, this game is intense. Then, you need to make your way through the fire without touching it. Soon, you arrive at the second opportunity to strike a pose as the flames surround you. Hell yeah, you're a badass. The fire goes out on its own, and now you're finally at the stage boss. He can't decide what resolution he wants to be as he keeps getting blocky. But you can give him some of your bombs, which utilizes the console's amazing transparency abilities. Keep hitting his resolution-changing ass in his heart and he'll be done for. Such a great start to an amazing game. Contra Hardcore on the Genesis also starts out extremely well. You begin by choosing a character. Then you're thrust into the dingy world and you quickly discover that blast processing has been applied to the Contra series for the first time ever, though the music here isn't as good as any of the previous games. This game is kidding around even less than Super C or Contra 3. It absolutely wants to show you the game over screen as quickly as it can. Here, you can collect and select between all of the weapons rather than just carrying one or two. There are lots of big enemies to mow down as well. Soon, you're at the first mini-boss, a little fire-spewing spider thingy. Once you beat him, he gets upset and thrusts himself into a building which falls over using the amazing Mode 7 abilities of the Sega Genesis. Actually, that's not Mode 7, but instead pure blast processing. You climb up to the top and wow, look at that giant robot back there. What is he doing? Holy crap, he's destroying the city! Wait, where did he go? Oh dear God, he came over here! And now you need to fight him! He bounces around a lot, but he goes down pretty easy. He's just another mini-boss. Granted, he's not exactly mini. Not far ahead is the stage boss who has a few tricks up his sleeve for you to discover. Beat him and the game lets you make a choice on where to go next. This stage is a great introduction to the ass-kicking you're about to receive. Here's Road Avenger from Renovation on the Sega CD. Every stage in this game is amazing, but this first one really lets you know what you're in for. You start out driving down the street when suddenly other drivers start trying to cut you off. Honestly, that's kind of rude. You let them know how you feel about that by plowing into them, causing their fiery demise. There's no way they can be pulled from those wrecks before they burn to a crisp. You make your way into town and this stupid bus is in the way. So you take to the sidewalk and casually end the lives of these three girls. Seriously, they should have known better, so really it's their fault. Then you're on the pier because it's a shortcut, and you take out all of the people and this motorcycle who happens to be there for some reason. Well, he shouldn't have been there because now he's dead. Then you plow into the hotel lobby because, I don't know, why the hell not? Be careful of the semi backing up with this toddler wandering right into your path. I hope he's okay, but does it really matter? Then it's on to the beach because you are insane. Other cars try to stop you from causing too much damage, but you quickly turn them into smoldering wrecks. What an amazing stage. This next series has some great opening levels as well, but mainly in the 16-bit era, I feel. How about Super Castlevania 4 on the Super Nintendo from Konami? Now, this isn't to say that the previous Castlevanias didn't have great first stages, but this one deserves special mention. You start out in a small area stocking up on a few things, when suddenly you get to the drawbridge, which is powered by the Super NES's absolutely mind-blowing Mode 7 abilities that took the world by storm at the time. I always try to stay on as long as I can, but you've got to be careful because you can jump over it and die. Then you're in the courtyard, finally killing evil undead skeletons and, of course, bats. There's always bats. This gives you the opportunity to get used to Simon's 8-way whip. Soon, you're in a more dingy part of the courtyard with stairs that go up, down, and all around. Eventually, you get to this grapple thingy which lets you swing on your whip. Better practice this a bit until you get the hang of it because you will absolutely need this skill in this game. Just a few steps later, you get to put your new skill to the test. If you can't do it, your adventure ends here. Then it's down you go, all while listening to the excellent first stage music called Theme of Simon. Next is the purple part, which is purple. You can find something hidden in the wall here. And here you can use another skill, simply letting your limp whip hang loose which somehow kills enemies. I love it. You wind up at the boss where you hear some amazing symphonic music that lets you know this game is not kidding around. At least with the presentation, the boss is actually pretty easy. This is a great intro to not only one of the very best Castlevanias, but one of the best games on the console in my opinion. Not to be outdone, Dracula X, or Castlevania Rondo of Blood on the PC Engine Super CD-ROM makes an amazing first impression. The game starts with a cool intro, part of which is playable, but the first stage is a town that's on fire. You're greeted with graphics that are uncommonly good for the platform. The next screen has a sign that tells you what town you're in. It's Algiba, the same town from Castlevania 2. That's awesome. You move forward battling monsters accompanied by some fantastic music, which is a staple of the series. Once you get here, you have a choice, which isn't obvious. You'll most likely go through the door on the right. Eventually, you'll fight these giant rock dudes. Then you get to the first boss, who is a cool fire-breathing dragon. Time to kick his ass. Beat him and you end up in this stage. Neat! However, back in that room, if you choose to instead go left and break the walls, a different adventure awaits. You'll find yourself fighting a giant plant who very much does not seem to appreciate dying. Then you're on a bucket trolley getting power-ups. I love power-ups. Next thing you know, you're fighting the alternate stage 1 boss, a completely different beast. Beat him and you move on to this stage instead of the other stage 2. Awesome. Everything about this first stage is incredibly fun. Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation knows that the previous game, which I just talked about by the way, was a winner. You start out by going up the stairs into Dracula's den. The secret staircase is even here, but there's nothing up there that you can really use. After some world-class voice acting,
I was called here by humans.
You're now playing the final battle of the previous game. Yeah, sure, they ripped it off from Wonder Boy 3 on the Sega Master System, but it's still awesome. And like Wonder Boy 3, this version is a lot easier, but it's still lots of fun. If you can't quite do it, Maria will come in and help you. It's not much, but this first interaction with the game lets you know that you're in for something very special indeed.
No, it cannot be!
It's Batman Returns from Sega on the Sega CD. This first stage here is easily the best stage in the game. First, you slowly enter the Batmobile with the Sega CD's bootleg Mode 7 abilities. Then you see Batman having some fairly significant issues keeping the car driving in a straight line, and then we fake Mode 7 right into his face. Now the gameplay begins with you driving the Batmobile in a true testament to the Sega CD's power. Not only does it look insanely cool for its time, but it's fun too. But the first time you play this, it can seem pretty tough. The stage has 6 segments, and in each segment you need to destroy all of the enemies, which are represented by the red blocks on the bottom. Kill them all and on to the next segment you go, getting some health back in the process. Be sure to hit some of the trash cans to get some extra heat-seeking missiles. The third segment is the mini-boss who springs his face out at you. Just avoid it and keep shooting at him. Each segment has slightly different graphics on the sides of the road, and the music is excellent, even though it has nothing to do with the movie the game is based on. The sixth and final segment is the boss fight. This one is tricky for a first boss. Ladders will pop out on the sides and you need to ram all 6 of the evil firefighters off of them, 3 on each side. After that, you can shoot him with your guns and missiles and down he goes. The following stages are all a bit too difficult to be much fun, but this first one is fantastic. Or how about Estall from Sega on the Saturn? This is a 32-bit 2D action game that blew me away with its backgrounds that look like paintings, much in the same way that Magician Lord did on the Neo Geo a few years prior. But these backgrounds are definitely next level. All of the stages in this game look great, but this one really wowed me with the potential of 32-bit. You pull things up from the ground and zoom out, and then you toss the thing at enemies, crushing them. This causes the screen to scale back in. Awesome. Not only that, but the music is excellent. All you need to do is make it to the end of this first segment. Now we're in some caves, and again, the music is top-notch, and the lights keep fading up and down. It honestly feels like they're applying lighting effects onto the 2D graphics somehow. Wow, 32-bit will surely bring us tons of awesome 2D games like this, right? You keep needing to duck when the bats fly by, but sometimes your exciting bird friend can take them all out with the press of a button. The stage ends in a boss fight whose life bar is represented by a crystal. Nothing too challenging here, but you do get the hang of your attacks. I always enjoy playing through the first stage of this one. This next game is one where, when I think about it, I really only think about the first level. I mean, it blew me away so much at the time, and honestly, it still holds up really well. It would be criminal not to include Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast in this episode. After the intro, which includes a short playable stint fighting a bad guy, you set off to the first stage, Emerald Coast. Man, this stage sure lets us know that Sonic is back and in full force, better than ever. Sega wasn't messing around with Sonic on the Dreamcast like they did on the Saturn. You've got extremely fast-moving, colorful, and detailed graphics. Sonic controls great. Well, I mean, he did for the time. It was crazy seeing Sonic like this after wondering what he'd be like in a proper 3D game. Hell, they even gave him a new look. This stage has some memorable scenes, especially running on this bridge, which is very unstable thanks to the nearby killer whale. And this killer whale would prefer it if you did not exist, so the whale chases you while absolutely wrecking his own environment while the camera switches view angles. What a crazy sequence this is. There are also plenty of other familiar Sonic things like running in loops and all that. There aren't many enemies to worry about in this stage as the game lets you get acquainted with the controls. Well, that's not what I wrote. Acquainted with the controls. Moving on. There are a couple of different musical themes at play here, and both are excellent with the best music in a Sonic game yet. I can play this first stage over and over, and I think I might like it more than most of the other stages in the game. But then Sonic Adventure 2 came out, also on the Dreamcast. Man oh man, the first stage here is even better! You can choose to play as either Hero or Dark when you begin the game. If you choose Hero, you start as Sonic, who escapes from a military helicopter, and you're taken to the first stage, City Escape. Using a piece of the helicopter, you're literally surfing down the streets of, I guess, San Francisco. You can jump and do sweet tricks because you're a 90s badass, even though this game came out in 2001. If you touch a car, they go flying through the air, killing all of the occupants. Get out of my way, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog! Pretty soon you wind up on foot. The first stage here gives you a lot more to do than the first stage in the original Sonic Adventure. There are quite a few enemies to take out with your homing attack. You can also grind rails on extremely lengthy staircases because, again, Sonic is a 90s badass. You can even flip around on bars to fly higher and farther, which is super fun. There's more precarious platforming here than the first stage from the first game, but nothing very dangerous. And not to be outdone, they made sure something chases you here as well. This time it's a giant truck that doesn't care about anything else except running you over. Run under a bridge and then he gets taken out. Oh, and during this level, you get to listen to a fun and energetic song which makes this stage really stand out. Danger is lurking around every turn. Trust your feelings, got to live and learn. If you choose the dark side, you play as Dr. Robotnik or Eggman or whatever they were calling him during this time. The first stage here isn't bad or anything, but it's certainly not classic. Sonic Adventure 2's City Escape stage came as a demo disc with Phantasy Star Online, and I'd play that again and again, getting super good at it. In my opinion, it's the best stage in the game, and so incredibly memorable. No time for guessing, follow my pen instead. Trusting in what you can see. Take my lead, I'll set you free. Follow me, set me free. Trust me and we will escape from the sea. Radiant Silvergun from Treasure on the Saturn opens up like no other shooter. I imported this one back when it was released and was blown away, and I still am to this day despite being quite out of practice. It's a vertical shooter where each button fires a distinctly different weapon. It starts out with some anime drama. Normally, I don't care much for anime drama or narration in my games, but damn if it doesn't work well here.
西暦2521年7月13日あれから1年が経とうとしている
It all adds to the intensity of the situation, which is laid on thick thanks to Hitoshi Sakimoto's excellent score. The first stage is extremely long and divided up into several segments, which the game calls stages, but hey, for this one I'm going until the game stops to load another stage. This stage, and hell, the entire game, is a visual masterpiece, showcasing Mode 7-like scaling and rotation that puts Mode 7 to shame. Don't worry, there are several polygonal objects here as well. Sometimes they're in the background, but mostly it's the bosses. These bosses don't look like anything really, just odd shapes piled together. That's okay though, it still looks cool and there are tons of bosses to fight here. I mean, it is a treasure game after all. There are various nooks and crannies that you'll fly through which demand that you learn which buttons fire which weapons if you hope to make it through without losing a ship or two. Eventually, you'll get to a super tough boss. Then you beat it. Surely that's the end of the stage, right? Hell no, you keep going. Check out this showpiece boss where you have to hide behind the pillars in order to escape his evil death ray. This boss definitely makes a statement with its cool design and tactics. Surely this is the end of the stage. No, quit being stupid, there's more. The final boss of the stage is this guy, attacking as you fly up the side of the tallest building ever constructed. Damn, this game is amazing, and this first stage is the perfect introduction to it. Here's E-Swat on the Genesis from Sega. This might seem like an odd choice in such an episode, but I'll explain. You start out as a wimpy human cop who can only fire his gun, but the control and precision with him feels really good. The first level is quite well designed, if a bit short. You have some platforming elements that are fun, and really the whole thing is reminiscent of Shinobi-style gameplay. There are only 2 stages where you play as a human, and the second stage where you do this is a bit of a slog. On stage 3, you get turned into a dollar store RoboCop. He has new weapons and stuff and is cool, but he's larger and controls quite a bit more sloppily, plus he has a bigger hitbox. I wish there were more stages where I could play as a human in this game, and this first stage is the best human stage. I always loved playing through it, whereas I could take or leave the rest of the game. I like how you jump all the way down several stories before the boss fight and you're fine. Why do they need to make me into a robot? I'm already badass. ActRaiser from Enix on the Super NES has an incredible opening. This is a hybrid action and sim game where you name your character and all that good stuff. You can move around on the map, but there's only one thing to do at the beginning, and that's fight the monsters. Am I ready? Hell yes, I'm ready. Mode 7 spins you towards your destination, and you know you're in for a huge treat. And hot damn, these action sequences are fun, and I love the control here. The gameplay is pumped up by the incredible music by Yuzo Koshiro, which is full of energy, making you want to scream out, "Hell yeah, the Super NES is awesome!" This stage isn't that long, but it doesn't really need to be. You make it to the first boss encounter in the game, once again with incredible music and sound effects that just fill you with excitement. It's over quickly, but you knew this was a special game after playing this stage. And there you go, some great opening levels that make an incredible first impression. Now, I'm not sure how popular this whole idea will be, so I want to thank you for tuning in and watching this episode. Thank you, thank you. But if you all actually like it, I do have more where that came from because there was no way I could include them all in a single episode. And I want to ask you, what are some of your favorite first stages and why? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. Hey guys, I figured it's time to do another Q&A, so I asked you to submit your questions on Twitter and Blue Sky, and well, let's just get to it. First question is from Toki or Taki, I don't know how you pronounce that, but he asks, "How are you doing, Joe?" Well, I'm doing great. What is hands down the most expensive bad game you own? Just the biggest gap between price and fun experienced. Well, I don't know that it's a bad game, but Flashback on the Genesis it's liked by a lot of people, but it's definitely not my favorite. This one didn't cost very much though, but what I did buy for, I still don't know why, is the Mega Drive version. And I bought that because it comes on these, these cute little Sunsoft carts. And it is a lot more expensive. I didn't need it. I already had the Genesis version. And I played it once for like 5 minutes. What was your most anticipated console release? By far, the Sega Genesis. I mean, that was the first console I was anticipating a release for, and you couldn't really do anything except call the store every day and ask, "Hey, do you have it yet? Do you have it? Do you know when you're going to get it?" And of course, they didn't know, and you knew it was coming, you just didn't know when, so it was very nerve-wracking. Is there a YouTuber that you wanted to do a video with that you haven't been able to? Actually, yes, both bigger and smaller YouTubers. I'd love to, but sometimes it just doesn't work out, and preferably in person, because I think that just works out so much better than phoning it in over the internet and just sending someone a video file. I mean, that's cool too, but in person is just always so much better. What's your opinion on pineapple pizza? I don't care. You can have whatever you want on your pizza. I don't have to eat it. What was it like working in the projection booth for the cinema in the 90s? Well, it was like this. Follow-up to that one, Blue Jester asks, as a former projectionist, do you have a collection of old trailers, mylar, posters, movie paraphernalia somewhere? If so, what's your favorite item? Well, I did collect trailers at one point. I spliced them together in a reel, but probably my favorite item is my 35mm print of Speed. No, I didn't steal that. It was given to me, but it's pretty cool to have the movie in 35mm as it was shown in the theaters. Honestly, I wonder if you play games on your mobile phone, or cell phone for you. If so, which ones? Well, I don't really, but back before GameSack started, there was one called Game Dev Story, which I played. I had a lot of fun with that. I played it at work, and it still actually works on my phone, but it doesn't have any audio. It hasn't had audio for like 10 years. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I liked it. What's the best track ever done up on the Genesis Gems sound driver? Gonna have to go with Comic Zone on that one. It's pretty good. Is Joe short for anything like Bazooka Joe or Immortan Joe, or is it just Joe? It's Joe Mama. Do you worry that Sonic likes Dave more than you like Sonic? Sonic isn't real. He can't like anyone. If you could add a 32X style mushroom to any console that doesn't have one, what system would get the ugliest attachment? Gonna have to go with the Atari Jaguar on that one. What's a game you didn't like at first but loved more and more on repeated playthroughs? Honestly, probably Ghostbusters on the Sega Master System. I absolutely hated this game at first, but the more I played it, I actually kind of started to like it. Specifically this version, not any other version. Have you been to Casa Bonita since the renovation? I have, actually. It's pretty fun. I mean, the food is fine. I mean, it's not bad. It's not as bad as it used to be, but you go more for the experience, and I recommend everyone go at least once. Will the modern game industry learn from its current mistakes and focus on making simple, fun games again? They've been making simple, fun games for a long time. You just have to look to the indie scene for those. Would you ever consider making a feature film, and why would it be about the Genesis versus SNES console war from Sega's with Tom Kalinske as main character point of view? Honestly, if I was going to make a feature film, it probably wouldn't be about video games. Is former wrestler Dutch Mantel your real father? I'm thinking he is, and it has a picture of the guy. No, he's not. Ron Perlman is my real father. My mother is Chuck Norris. What is the last game you completed 100%, obtaining all achievements, doing all side quests, etc.? You know, I usually don't care about completing games to 100%, but to answer your question, Astrobot on the PlayStation 5. How long did it take you to create the animated intro? Well, I'm guessing a week and a half to maybe 2 weeks. The way I did it is I mirrored my Mac screen onto my iPad and then just drew it on the iPad with the Apple Pencil. It was much easier and cheaper than going out and buying something like a Wacom tablet. Way cheaper, especially since I already had the iPad. So I did that, and I can't remember how many frames it has, but it had a lot, so that's how I did it. With games like Streets of Rage 4, Ninja Saviors, Sonic Mania, and the upcoming Shinobi game, do you expect future gaming to keep us retro gamers fed with classic era style game content? Absolutely. I think most people know that retro gaming is awesome, and that's why they keep making it, because it will always be awesome and there will always be a market for that. Anyway, that's all the questions I have this time, so thanks for watching.